Hi everyone. It's been several weeks since uploading any tutorials to my channel, so I wanted to catch up with everyone again. In this tutorial, we'll create this cubic lattice abstract based on an implementation of the Schwarz P minimal surface family. The image you see here is actually a render I did of the model using the Corona render engine for 3dsmax. Aside from making an interesting render subject, this object would also make an ideal candidate for 3D printing, since it could be printed at a relatively small scale and given a reasonable wall thickness to save on material costs. Alright, so let's get to it. We'll begin here in 3dsmax with an empty scene. Alright, we'll be modeling the scale, so you'll want to make sure that your scale parameters are set properly. In this case, I'll be using centimeters as my unit of measure. You can adjust your parameters by going to Customize Unit Setup. I have it set to metric, obviously, centimeters, and then tick into the System Unit Setup, and just make sure your System Unit Scale is also at centimeters. 1 unit will equal 1 centimeter. Okay, and we'll adjust the grid here by right-clicking on the Snaps toggle, going to Home Grid. Right now the grid spacing is set at 10 centimeters, which means that each space here will be 10 centimeters square. But I think I will change that to 1 and use all viewports. Okay, so now we're down to a very small scale here. Alright, but we'll be able to judge our size a little bit better. Alright, so now that we have this set properly, we'll begin by clicking on the box in the standard primitive panel. Set it to cube as the creation method, and then click the plus sign next to the keyboard entry. Alright, my parameters are 3 centimeters length, 3 centimeters width, and 3 centimeters height. And you can see that they've already been entered here from the last time I performed this operation. So then we just press create, and we have our cube right in the center of the screen. Okay, so I'll just back up a little bit here. Now what we'll do is we'll convert that to an editable poly. Go down into face level, and holding down Control on the keyboard, tap the A key to select all, and then hold down Shift while you click Extrude to bring up the caddy, and we'll change the method to by polygon, and we'll change the length to just 1 centimeter. Okay, so we've extruded each face by 1 centimeter. Click the accept, and then we'll go ahead and delete the selected faces. So this is what we're left with. Okay, now we can back up a little bit here, and then we could go next to our tools panel and select the array. Okay, so now the array panel is open. And the first thing we'll do is make sure that by default it'll be the type of object will be set to instance. We'll change that to copy, and then we can go ahead and go to our 1D array dimension, set the count to 3. It'll be at 10 by default. Go to the 2D and also set it at 3, and then go to the 3D and set it also at 3. Okay. And then we will go and hit preview. Alright, now mine are already showing the previous time that I used this. However, what you want to do here is just to go ahead and adjust the Z parameter up here on the incremental, okay, until you see that the objects are just about touching each other, alright, on the Z plane here. Okay, and then whatever measurement that amounts to, you can go ahead and go down to your 2D and just go ahead and paste that same amount into the Y factor. Okay, so if it's 5 centimeters on the Z up here, you'll use 5 centimeters on the Y under the 2D incremental row, and then switch to 3D and use the same amount, 5 centimeters on the X. All right, and you can see what's happening on the left hand side here. Okay, so once you have 5 centimeters or whatever centimeters it comes to on yours, if you're following my my units of measure and everything, it should be about 5, and then 5 on the Y here, and then 5 on the X here. All right, and then hit OK. And what we're left with is a triply periodic cube. All right, but these are all copies, so you can see they're all individual copies still. All right, so what we'll want to do is go ahead and select one of the objects, and then in the command panel for that object, right next to the attach button is a little square here that is for the attach list. We'll go ahead and open that up and just go ahead and highlight every object that's in the list and click the attach button, and that has now attached all of the objects in the scene together as one object. All right, however, now if you go into the sub-object element mode, you can still see that each element of this object is still independent because they have not been welded together yet. All right, so welding will be our next step. Okay, so what we'll do here is click the Alt-W to bring up the quad view. All right, and we'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Now in the quad view I have top, front, and left views available. So we'll go ahead into Vertex Mode, and just holding down Control, I'm using the box select method, and I'm just selecting these vertices here in between the main parts. All right, that's vertically, and then I will do the same thing horizontally in the top view. All right, so all of those vertex, and now we'll go down into the left panel here, and we'll go ahead and select all of these vertices and all of these vertices. All right, and you can see in the front view that have all the proper vertexes selected. So now that we have all these vertices selected, we can go ahead and hold down Shift on the control panel while you click the weld command to bring up the caddy. All right, now we're going to adjust the weld threshold until we see deformation, and then we'll just back off a little bit. All right, now usually we can go pretty far here. This one is 1.5, and I'm starting to see a lot of deformation, so I'm going to back off a little bit incrementally until that deformation disappears. All right, so my weld threshold is 1.3, and then you can see the before and after, 864 before and 648 after. So I know that all these selected points are welded properly. Go ahead and click OK. Now if we go ahead and jump to the element sub-object mode and we select it, it will select the entire object because now it's all been welded together, all the parts. So it's now actually one solid object, well, one solid non-manifold object. All right, so now let's see, we're going to go down into the vertex mode, and all of the vertices are still selected, so we will hold down Shift while we select the edge mode, and that will select just the edges attached to those vertices and no other edges. And then we'll hold down Control and tap the backspace, and that will remove all of those edge loops along with the vertices. Okay, so there is our object so far. All right, now I'm holding down Alt while I tap the W key to bring up just the perspective view screen here. Alright, and the next step will be to go to Polygon Mode, deselect everything if it's selected, and Control D, by the way, to deselect everything. Alright, now I will select all of these faces here. Alright, all of these extruded faces on one of the corners here. And then when I have those selected, I will go up to my graphite ribbon and select Similar to grab all of them. And then I will simply delete. Alright. And that will leave you with this interesting object, which, if you've been following my tutorials, might appear fairly reminiscent of a previous object. Alright, but of course this is triply periodic, so it's a little bit different. If we went ahead and added a subdivision, you'll see that it does look like that cube object that we worked on a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago I should say. Okay, but let's not, we're not ready yet to subdivide anything. So now at this point we'll go into the front view and we'll enable the ignore back facing at the face mode. Alright, because what we're going to do now is, if you look at this directly in the front view, you'll see a little pattern here, and we're going to select all of the faces that make up this cross shape in the front view, right in the center of the object. Okay, and then we'll go to the side view and do the same. And I have ignore back facing on so that we don't select any unintended faces while we do this operation. Okay, and then I'll just rotate the object around again and select the same pattern on the other side, the next side, and do the same on the next side yet. And then I'll go up to the top view, select the same pattern of faces, and then we'll go down to the bottom view. And you could, I'm using the navigation cube here, which most people don't like, but you could use the hotkeys to go to each perspective view if you like. All right, so now that we're at this step, just look around, make sure you don't have any unwanted faces selected. Okay, and it looks like we have all of the ones that we intended to select, and then just hit delete to remove those faces, and now we're left with this object. Okay, so the next step is to go down into your edge mode, and we're going to want to select every edge that makes up a corner on this new object. Okay, so all of the edges that are at these corner junctions we want to select. Alright, so I selected all the corner junction edges at the top. Now I'm going down to the next level here, and there'll be 4 edges to select there. Okay, and then I'll go down to the next level and select those 4 corner edges, and only the corner edges. Okay, you can keep ignore back facing on at this point if you'd like, although it's probably not necessary. Alright, now we'll select the final group of corner edges down here at the bottom. Okay, so then we have all those corner edges selected. I'll turn off my ignore back facing at this point. I don't think we'll need it anymore. Alright, so now that all of these corner junction edges have been selected, we'll tap on the backspace key to remove them. And I'm not holding down Control this time when I tap backspace, because I want to just delete the edges and not any vertices associated with those edges. Okay, now I'm going to Control Z that to show you if I hold down Control and click backface, this is going to happen. Okay, and this is, while this is an interesting shape as well, it's not going to result in the shape that we're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z that and just tap backspace. Okay, so we've retained the vertices that were associated with those edges, but those edges are no longer there. Okay, so that's going, and the reason for that is it's going to give us an interesting result when we go ahead and subdivide once. So I've added a turbo smooth to subdivide it once, and you can see what has happened. Because we've done that, we have a very interesting thing has happened here in the corners, and it's created these sharp these sharp points there that would have been rounded out had we retained those edges, or had we deleted those edges along with the vertices. All right, but instead we've created these sharp corner points here. Okay, and that's part of the key to attaining this shape. And now you can see it's already becoming apparent. So what we'll do here is we'll go into orthographic, our left orthographic view. All right, and I'm going to add an edit poly on top of the turbo smooth. All right, now if you're using a newer version of 3dsmax, you might be using the newer subdivision methods, and that's fine. I'm using an older version here, so I don't have the newer subdivision algorithms, but turbo smooth works fine for this. So I'm using turbo smooth, and then I keep it in the stack and put an edit poly on top of that. And then now I'm going to go down to my edge level, and I'm going to hold control while I box select just this edge up here, and then the same on the other side, and then the same down on the bottom. Okay, you can see the edges that I've selected while holding down control and using box select. And that's going to select any edges that are behind there as well. So you'll want to make sure ignore back facing is off while you perform this procedure, because you do want to capture any of the edges that are behind this edge in the object at this point. Alright, so I'm in the left. I'm going to switch now to let's see, I'll go back to perspective view. Actually, I'll tap T to go to top orthographic, and I'm holding control, and I'm going to select the same edges in the top view. Well, they'll look the same anyway, but they won't be the same exact edges. Alright, so now I'll go to, I tapped F to go to front, and I'm holding control and selecting the same, the same group of edges this way in the front viewport. Alright, and I think we have all the ones we want. So what I'm going to do now is hold Alt, tap the Alt key to loop that selection, go back to perspective view, and look around, and that accomplished the task that I wanted. So what we're going to do now with all these edge loops selected is I'm going to go into my loops panel and bring up my loops tool, which is in the graphite ribbon. I know in later versions of Max they've changed the location of this tool, but it is still present. So if you're using 3dsmax 2015 or 16, you may not have it in the same location in your graphite ribbon, but just refer to your documentation. It's in there somewhere. In older versions it's under the loops panel in the graphite ribbon, loop tools. Okay, so that brings up the loop tools panel here. And with those edge loops selected, I'm going to tap the turn to circle, the circle button here. And what that has done is it's just circularized those edge loops and made them into perfect circles here, as you can see. And this is basically just for an aesthetic purpose, so that when we're looking at it from certain angles, the holes will be nice and round, and won't have any deformation. Okay, so that's basically all that was for, but it just provides a nice round hole selection in the object. Okay, so now that that's done, we can go ahead and apply our shell. You can close out the loops panel at this point, and we're almost finished now. So we can go ahead and apply a shell modifier on top of that. Now, again, this is retaining some of my previous settings, but once you apply the shell modifier, the first thing you'll want to do is change the outer amount to 0.25 centimeters, and then change the inner amount to 0.25 centimeters, and that will give you an even thickness of a half a centimeter all totaled. Okay, so you have a thickness there. I like to do an even amount on the inner and outer, so it doesn't cause any interior deformation. Sometimes if you have more inner than outer, it can deform the object in a certain way. So just keeping that equal helps to correct that issue. All right, now what I'll do is I'll scroll down in the shell modifier and I will tick the select edges option, and you can see that it's selected only the edge faces of our shell. Okay. Now when I apply an edit poly on top of the shell and I go down to the face mode, that selection is still available, which is handy because we'll do an inset is our next step, to inset all of these selected edges. Alright, so just do an inset by group. A very small inset is all that's required. So in this case it's 0.1 centimeters. Okay, and this this could be varying depending on how sharp you want your edges to be when you go ahead and smooth them with another iteration of subdivision. Alright, so finally on top of this we will add another turbo smooth, and I will increase the iterations to 2 for a nice smooth result. And if I remove the edged faces, you can see we have our object that we were hoping to get. And it has a nice thick shell on it, so that if we wanted to export this as an STL for 3D printing, we could still create we can create a wall thickness, and it should still be printable to save on materials and cost and whatnot, like I mentioned earlier. Okay, so this is the object. Again, fairly easy object to achieve. I mean, if you were doing this after the first time through this tutorial and you wanted to do it on your own, I would say it would probably take you less than 5 minutes to achieve. So, fairly easy. And it, if you went ahead and 3D printed this, I mean, this could have some real-world applications, maybe a pencil holder of some kind, or something like that, as well as just being visually aesthetic. So, all right, well, that was this. That concludes this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be back very soon with another tutorial. Probably in less than a week, I'll have another tutorial up on my channel. So, please subscribe and like the video, and I will see you again soon. Thank you very much.